anybody listening to this is hopefully getting inspired, because my story is not I started a business and 3 months later I made $1 million. It was such a journey to get from like being in my 20s and earning chump change to like right now I can like look at any month and I'm making 5 figures a month. I'm not going back. Now that I'm at this point, I'm like, okay, I could see the growth being exponential. And I can confidently say that just because like I've been through all the mess. Like I failed 1,000 times over. Okay. So I know all the mistakes not to make anymore. And another thing for people to really understand is that I don't have a big following on Instagram. I'm not like, on there like that. I don't have millions and thousands of followers. I don't have a huge podcast or anything like that, but I'm able to still run a profitable business. Hey, this is Shirley Ansley, and you're listening to Dreams in Drive.
This episode of Dreams in Drive is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's is more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. I'm loving it. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 284 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And I am super excited for you all to hear from this week's guest, Shirley Ansley. Shirley is a website designer that specializes in designing websites for high ticket sales, right? Her clients are multi-passionate female-led business owners. And on this episode, we're going to talk about how Shirley was able to come back after multiple challenges and mishaps and things going wrong with the plan that she had for herself, right? She had this plan. She had this dream driving journey that she thought she was going to be on, and things just kept happening that set her off track. But she's going to talk about how she was able to get herself back on track, and today is in a place in her business that she is truly proud of. I love this line from her bio, right? She says, I got into this line of business because of rejection and being passed over for promotion after promotion. And I wanted to prove to myself that I was more than qualified and capable of being wildly successful. And for a lot of us dream drivers, this is the mindset shift that we have to get into, right? We are more than qualified. We are more than capable. And I really do believe that our wild dreams can come true. And I'd love for you guys to tune in today's episode to learn how Shirley was able to put a dream of hers into drive and dealt with so much, like the COVID-19 pandemic, motherhood, and even too much business. And we're going to talk about how that became a problem for her. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you're sharing it with your community. You can find us across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dreams and Drive. I love to see you guys posting to Instagram stories especially, so continue to do that. Let me know if you're listening to this episode so that I can reshare it with the wider Dreams and Drive family as well. All right, let's hear from Shirley.
Hey, so excited.
I am excited to have you. I have been, it's funny because a lot of times in the show, I pitch people that I don't know, or I pitch people that, or I look at pictures of people who pitch me and it's like, I don't have a relationship with them. But I'm like, you know what, for the end of the year, I want to talk to people who already are people that are in my network, people that I've communicated with, people who are doing dope things, and just catch up. So you were somebody who has been on my, I have this little vision board, or I call it my screenshots list in my phone. And I'm like, I want to have Shirley to talk about digital branding, her story, and all that good stuff. And plus, you're a mom. And because I'm a mom now, I just feel like I can relate to other moms as well. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel so honored that there was a vision board involved in this. That is really great.
Yeah, I have a list of screenshots on my phone of people that I need to email. That's my little to-do list. Whenever I have some free time, I go through my screenshots and just kind of get a reminder of what I'm supposed to be doing, or, people I'm supposed to be reaching out to. So
this is awesome. And I love catching up with you because I literally, we're just going to have a good time. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah. So wait, let's give the audience a little background of our relationships. I feel like we were first introduced through Nicaila. Was that how, or was it before Nicaila, right? You did all the visual designs and graphics for Nicaila's Side Hustle Pro Live event, which was my first time being an event producer. And it was such a pleasure working with you. I feel like we had such a good, working dynamic, right?
Yeah. I was oh my goodness, having you as a client was amazing because you were so efficient. You got back to me with stuff and I was like, oh my goodness, can everyone just be like you? Like it was amazing. So yeah, like the first time we met was through Nikayla. Like you were pitching me on a project and you're like, I have the secret client. And I'm like, okay, cool. And you're
wait,
like,
wait, did I pitch you? Wait,
you were like, I'm pitching this like event or something like that, and I'm looking for a graphic designer. But you had like the client was like secret at first, and
that
then
is
you're
so
like,
funny.
and I was like, oh, it's Nikayla.
So you did her website after that event, did you?
I had done her website before, I think, and then
Oh, okay.
we had pitched the event like after, but like we didn't know what the event was, and so like when you revealed what the event was, I was like, oh, I'm excited. I could do this.
Okay, yeah. No, that's definitely dope. And then I know that you had chosen my brand. Because listen, guys, I'm gonna be taking notes from this too. And Shirley knows, like, I'm in need of a brand overall. So we're not gonna make this about me, but I'll be taking notes because Shirley has already. I think you used me as an example from one of your online classes, and I was really impressed. And at that time, I didn't go forward with your services because I was going through my own life change. I was pregnant, and I'm like, oh, let me like try to figure out life before I make this investment. So I'm just happy that we were able to come full circle and we're sitting down now in our virtual chairs and having this chat.
Absolutely. And I love listening to your podcast and all the people who come on the show and just be able to share their story. So it feels like coming full circle, just like actually being in the chair and like with you.
So let's go back in time. How I love to start all our interviews, right? Is really talking about who was Shirley the kid, right? What was young Shirley dreaming about? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up here in Boston, Massachusetts, and
all right.
It's always been fun. So as a kid, I don't know how to describe it, like confused, I guess. So to give people context, I am a first generation Haitian American. Okay. So I grew up with immigrant parents, which means that, they grew up having plans for me already. And so the confusion really came from like, how do I gently tell my parents I don't really want to become a doctor? And so I kind of tried to figure out, like, when I was really, really young, like, what should I do? What can I do? And I was fortunate that, like, around high school age, that somebody exposed me to engineering, and that literally became my obsession. Especially since I saw that you could take a tech degree and literally turn it into something that is fun to do, which specifically was designing roller coasters and interactive rides and stuff like that. And so literally from high school on, I became obsessed with this idea of becoming a Walt Disney Imagineer. It was like insane. Like, I took that like aspiration and I did everything towards kind of making sure that I could become a Walt Disney Imagineer. So in college, while everybody was doing, traditional internships and like co-op programs, I was like, I'm going to go to Disney World and do the college program, figure out what this company is all about, and then like learn everything that I can possibly learn in order to become a Walt Disney Imagineer.
That is so interesting. So you were so specific and so niche, right?
Yeah, it was very specific. Like I was like so determined. It was so funny because I was almost embarrassed to tell people that I wanted to be a Walt Disney Imagineer. So I didn't tell them in general what I was going to do. I just told them I was going to do engineering. And the backstory behind that and why it's significant that I went into the engineering program was I was with my mom and her friend one day, and her friend had asked me, like, hey, what are you going to do when you go into college? What are you going to be studying? And I was like, I'm going to be studying engineer. Now, she was a nurse. My mother's a nurse. Like everybody and their mama was a nurse. And so their aspirations as well for all of their children is to become doctors. And so my answer was like, hey, I want to study engineering. And she was like, well, at least you have your looks. And I'm like, oh, I was taken aback by that. I was like, what does that mean? Because she was like, well, doctors make more money and doctors is going to be a secure career. It's going to be more helpful for you. And so I kind of just took that as okay, you think I'm going to fail. So watch me do this. And I went to the program. I stuck to it. Like there were hard times through the program, especially like being in a class where literally, I was one of three black students in the class. And I think I was the only Black female in the class. So it was hard just being able to relate to somebody in the program to like, like push myself through it and go through it and stuff like that. And I was so happy the day I got my degree, because I was like, I just thought back to that lady who was like, at least you have your looks. And I was like, look what I did. I got my engineering degree, booyah. And so from there, you would think that I had everything all set and,
I was going to say,
I have my happily ever after. That didn't happen for me, unfortunately. When I got in senior year, like close to graduation, I kind of got this level of anxiety because even though I knew I wanted to go into I wanted to be a Walt Disney Imagineer, I also, for some reason, I was just tired. And before burnt out was like an actual term, I think I was just like burnt out and I needed a break. However, I don't think my mom would have like really accepted that as an answer, like taking a break from school. So what I did instead was I decided, hey, let me just continue my higher education. And I applied
dun, dun, dun.
Let me just continue my higher education. So I applied to grad school and I found this really cool program out in Las Vegas that would allow me to still study engineering and entertainment and the mesh between those two. And I packed up all my stuff. This was my first time actually moving away from home because like during college, I was still living at home with my parents. So this was going to be my first time away from home, living on my own on a completely different coast and doing my own thing. And again, I don't think all the stuff added up right, because when I got there, I just like was not in my right mindset. Like I applied with like not even like the right motivations. And you could tell because like halfway through my program, I was like struggling like to stay afloat and stuff like that. And I called my mom and I was just like in tears because I was like, this is not working out. And I was like, I don't know. Were you
ashamed or what did you feel at this point?
I felt so ashamed, like, especially again, as a first generation, like, Haitian American, I was like, I really do want to help my parents and I want to make them proud of me. And just getting to my grad school program was like a highlight for them because, like, it's the first person in the family. They told all their
church friends. Yes. They told all their everybody, right?
Yeah, it's like they tell people that, oh, my daughter is going to a fancy school with this fancy degree and she's going to get a master's. I think I was like the first person in the family to like pursue my master's degree. So that was like a big thing too. And just knowing that like I couldn't make it through it, like I was so ashamed. Like I was crying and crying and crying. But when I was on that call with my mom, she was like, you know what, it's okay. We can figure this out. Just pack up your stuff. You could come home and we'll figure everything out. Right. So I pack up my stuff and I go home. I'm still crying. I'm still crying. So I get home. I'm like, you know what? I can pick myself up. I can do this. I can get myself together. And I thought I would easily be able to secure a job and, just pick myself up and like.
Because you had a bachelor's degree at this point, right?
Yeah. Okay. I had a bachelor's degree in engineering. And like, that was like for somebody to just have a degree in engineering.
You're a Black woman. You should be like, exactly. They should be coming knocking at your door.
Right. I was like, this is fine. It's just a bump in the road. It'll be easy. But I spent like a couple months like jobless. All right. Like I was shocked that I couldn't find a job right away. I was like, but I have a degree. Like, why can't I find a job? And for anybody who's like, who has like, dropped out of grad school or like just dropped out of something in general and they're on the hunt for a job and then you go for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks without finding something, it actually makes your prospect of getting a job harder and harder and harder. And so
do you know why that is?
Honestly, when I think, like, if I'm thinking back to those days, I think when recruiters see that you have been out of work for a while, they think you need retraining or that you're not in touch with the material enough for them to like hire you. Like you don't have the experience enough for them to be like, okay, I can take this person, put them in the role, and they'll be ready to go. So the longer you stay out of the job market, the more that they feel that you're not a match. And this is just my theory. I can't say that this is 100% true, but I feel like the theory is that the longer you stay out of the job market, the harder it is for you to get a job, because they think you're not like, you're not up to date with your training and your education enough to like hop into a role and be able to secure that role. That's just my theory. And I think that's basically what happened to me. It's just that they felt like I wasn't a right fit because I didn't have the experience. And so I don't know about you, but like during that time, I was like going through a lot of imposter syndrome, because I'm like, well, maybe like I'm not worthy of these positions. Like, I don't understand. But the reality of the situation was, like, at the time, it was still a recession. Like, and a lot of companies weren't hiring. And I wish I had the wisdom at that time to know that, like, you know, these companies aren't hiring me, not because I don't have the ability to do that, but just because like the market is just not there. And so I had to figure out a way to start making money. And this is kind of like, I want to say like my first introduction to like working for myself, because I had to start figuring out like, where am I going to get money? Because I can't stay with my parents right now. Like,
this is before a kid. This is before marriage, all that stuff, right?
Yes, before kids, before marriage. I was still in my early 20s, and I was like, I need to figure out how I could start, you know, side hustling or something like that, just to make some money so I can get out of my parents' house, because I didn't want to be that story where it's like, oh, she's in her 20s and still living with her parents. Like, this was before it was still cool to live with your parents until you're like 30. Like,
or just like how life happens. I just feel like most people now, like with the whole job market and living in Northeast, it is expensive out here.
It's super expensive. Yeah. I was like, I was just like out of touch with that particular thing. Like, how am I going to, I never even anticipated like what it would look like if I couldn't get a job, because the promise is that like, if you get your college degree, you can get anything. And that's what I lived off of. I'm like, these people know better than me and I trust them. Like, they know what they're talking about. And when I wasn't seeing the result, like, hey, I have this college degree. I signed a lot of loans to get this degree, and I'm not seeing that result. So I had to just take things into my own hands and start freelancing. And so I was just doing general graphic design. And the only reason I went into graphic design was because at the time, my sister was studying graphic design as her degree program. So she was in school trying to get a degree in graphic design. I was like, I can't even believe that somebody's going to pay her to like do this as a legitimate career. So I started like, well, let me see if I can do it too. So I went into general graphic design, and I just started freelancing and making money on the side. And at the time, I was also working part-time at like a retail store, making literally minimum wage. Like, when I tell you, like, the most they could offer me was $6.75. Like, I kid you not. And I even tried to negotiate that. And they were like, no, we don't have extra money in the budget. So between side hustling and working that part-time job, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get out of this, because it was not supposed to be like a permanent solution. It was just a temporary solution. So with all of that being said, I actually decided to go back to the first idea that I had, which was I want to become a Walt Disney Imagineer. And so somehow, some way, you know, like God was looking out for me, because I applied to a position at the Walt Disney Company and actually got hired. So like all of that stuff, I was like, oh yes, like literally, I was like, yes, I could do this. And so finally, I was able to pack up all my stuff and move out of my parents' house. And I was like, sayonara, I love you guys, but I'm finally pursuing my dream. Yes, I was finally pursuing my dream. So I get to Florida and I'm like super excited. I have all of this opportunity in front of me. And it was a great, great experience. Like, I loved working for that company. I loved everything that I did. Like, I loved learning about like all of the different departments. And I was really good at my job. The problem was my position.
Were they paying you?
They were paying me. They were paying me.
Okay.
They were paying me decent. It wasn't like the greatest, but it was decent. It was enough for me to like pay rent, pay utilities and stuff like that. But the problem was the position was temporary. So I had to figure out like I knew there was a timeline to it, right? So I knew like the clock was ticking and like each day, like I was coming closer and closer to the contract ending. But I had this hope inside me that like, okay, if I'm just optimistic, eventually I can figure out how to get a position in another department or something like that, just so I could stay. But when I tell you, like, God has different plans, like literally, he has different plans because by the time the contract had ended, I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and interview for another position in another department. I was heading on my way, driving towards that interview for that other department, and I got into a car crash. Like my car was literally.
This is the definition of you do not know what someone's journey is until they start talking. All right. So
like literally on my way to the interview and I got into a car crash. So I had to call the people up and like, I can't make it because my car just got totaled. Like it didn't get totaled,
right?
But like, yeah, I was all right. But like, I was so upset that like, I was like really trying to hold on to this job. And like my one opportunity to keep the job was like gone. So I lost that interview and my contract was ending and my lease was coming up for my apartment. And again, I had to pick up the phone, call my mom, and I was crying again. I was like, everything is not working. And she's like, it's okay. Pack up your stuff. Come on home. I'll take care of you. And so for the second time, I had to move back home. By this time, I was like literally in my late 20s. And I was like, I was really upset. Like I was really, really sad.
I was going to say, because at this point, I know when you were disappointed when you were in Vegas and you had to come back. Now you're in Florida and having to come back. You're pissed at this point? Or you're like, this is just...
I wasn't pissed, but I was really disappointed in myself. However, because of the experience that I had the first time of moving back home, I wasn't as depressed as I was the first time. Okay. So I was like, listen, you've been through this before. You can figure it out. Like I got a side hustle. I figured out how to make money. So the second time around, I was like, I'm going to make it work. And that's when I was like, you know what? Jobs are not really like a secure thing for me right now because like in the first stage where like I could barely find a job because of what the market looked like. And then in the second stage where it's like it was a contract position and, you know, they couldn't guarantee that they could keep me on track like all for the entire year or for a lifetime. I was just like, a job is not really a secure thing for me. So I got in the state of mind that like having my own job or being entrepreneurial might be the thing for me to do because I need to secure or just understand that I can make my own money and know where it's coming from. Yeah. And that's when I really just got to this mindset where it's like, I need to figure out how to start a business. So this entire time, I was like, okay, I'm going to start a business, but at the same time, I'm going to make sure I have a job, like a 9-to-5 job, and use that in order to figure out how to fund my business. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to just quit and then go full time in my business. That was the plan. That's what it started out as. But things happen. So like my boyfriend turned into my fiance and then into my husband. And then I went from being a single girl to a wife. And then from there, I went into being a mom quick because I got pregnant, like literally like right after I got married. So I became a mom and I was like the whole plan just went up. And I was just like,
it seems like a thread is like Shirley plans and then life happens, right? That could be a shirt. Shirley plans and then life happens.
Life happens. It really does. So I think like the biggest lesson here for anybody listening is that like you can make all the plans that you want, but things are going to happen and you just have to go with the flow. Cause just for me, because there's some people, they plan their lives and it just goes according to plan. But for me, like a lot of the times I can have an idea, but it just doesn't necessarily work out in the time frame that I had planned it to work out. So I did obviously like start my own business. I have my own business. I work for myself, but it didn't happen when I was in my 20s. It happened when I was in my 30s. So like I said, I would have loved to have started a business and been like at the 6-figure range when I was in my 20s, but that didn't happen until my 30s because, I got married and then I was focused on planning a wedding. And then I had my first kid and then I was focused on taking care of him for that first year. But then at that time, I started to notice that, like I was working at a job that was supposed to be temporary. I was working there and it had turned into like 5, 6, 7 years before I knew it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so far off track. It's not even funny. And the real wake up call for me was when I got pregnant with my second son, because at that time I felt like I was not making enough to really have enough income to support 2 children. Now, granted, like, we have a 2-income household, like my husband brings in money, but I have always been of the mindset that like, I want to be partners and like, I don't want my husband to like, just take care of all of it. I want to be a contributing person to this family. And for me, I was like, the salary I'm making right now, it's not going to cut it. And so when I got
saw on your website, I think you said on your website, at 33, you were still making like less than $50,000 a year, right? And it was something you're like, wait, how did I get here?
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening, I don't know if anybody else is going to experience this, but like I made a silly mistake after I got pregnant with my first son, in that like I asked my job, is it possible that I can work from home 2 days a week so that I could take care of him and still do the work? Because most of what I was doing was graphic design. It didn't like somebody didn't need to like be over my shoulder. I didn't need to be at meetings all of the time. So I thought it was reasonable to be able to have a child and still work from home. Yeah. And they were like, no, they were like, no, you cannot work from home. This was like before it was cool to work from home. And so they were like, no, you cannot work from home. And instead we're offering you 80% of your salary in order to just take that extra day off and take care of your child. So that was their comeback. Instead of like saying, hey, we'll give you 4 days a week, 10 hours a week or something like that. They were just like, no, we'll give you
So they want to cut your salary, although you were going to be you still were doing the same amount of work.
So no, because I wasn't working on Fridays anymore. So
okay.
So I, instead of working a 5-day week, I was working a 4-day week. And so they just cut off the salary for the 5-day week. So that was 20% of my salary. And I was just like, I should have walked away from that situation and been like, no, let me just find something else. But I was like too lazy to go and find another job. And I was like, I'm established here. I've been here for like years. Like, let me just do it. And so I took a pay cut and I didn't realize how much of a pay cut that was until like I started looking at my taxes like, oh my gosh, yeah. I'm making less than like a college student straight out of grad school or something like that. I was like, I cannot believe how much I'm making. And like, I kept that 80% all the way up to having my, getting pregnant with my second child. And so that was like a good 3 or 4 years of me just like taking that salary. So I want to advise anybody that if your job does not want to pay you full time or doesn't want to pay you the full salary just to work from home for a few days, then like really explore your options, because taking a pay cut is not okay for anybody, okay for women, and especially not okay for women of color, because, women of color are already under earning anyway. So like, if you look at the stats, I still look at the stats today and they still say women of color are still under earning. So like when it comes, so the fact that I took so much money off the table for me is an example of why women are under earning, because like I made that sacrifice when I didn't even need to make a sacrifice. All I needed to do was kind of like look for different options. Right. And then on top of that, like women who are exploring the option of, possibly I want to have a family one day, but like your jobs are looking at you more as a liability versus like as an asset. Like they're like, oh, she has a kid now, she's not going to be present. Like, no.
I don't understand that. It's so funny now that I'm a mother. I'm like, yo, but the world needs mothers. Because if you guys want workers, you need us to create these and nurture these and make sure these workers get to adulthood. And, it's just so funny how much mothers are undervalued in our society. It's so sad.
It is. I mean, like the relationship that you build with your children is so important because it really molds their character, right? You don't want somebody who grows up without that love and nurturing, because it turns them into like a different person, if that makes any sense, not as empathetic and not as sensitive and things of that nature. So I was not willing to compromise that with my children. Like I wanted to build a relationship with my children. So like I said, when I got pregnant with my second son, I was like, yeah, we're not doing this again. I'm not taking another pay cut just so that like you guys can feel good at the end of the day. I'm going to earn all the money that I can possibly earn. And I made a decision like I was going to just do it. So I started taking my business very, very seriously at that point, because I was just kind of.
What was your business at this point?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I went back to graphic design. So I knew I was kind of tinkering with the graphic design since I started that as a side hustle the first time. And I was literally playing games with it, because like I would get a client, but like, because I would prioritize my job and then prioritize my children and prioritize my husband, like it was not priority at all. So like I was playing games with it. So I decided like, you know what, I'm going to like really take this seriously. And one of the things that I did to kind of like take it seriously is, number one, I started doing a lot more self-promotion. So I started telling a lot more people, you know, like, this is what I do. Like, I also do website design. I also do graphic design. I also do all of this stuff. So like, if you're building a business, I can help you with your collateral material. And just doing that self-promotion just helped kind of put my name out there. So like when people were like, when my friends would talk to their friends about like, oh, do you need somebody to hook you up with a website? Like call my friend Shirley over here because she does websites. So I think like when you want to start taking yourself seriously, you have to really start promoting yourself. Like it doesn't have to be.
That's the hardest part sometimes.
Yeah,
that can be.
Like it doesn't have to be fancy. And I think that's where people get like really messed up, is because like they were like, oh, I have to get these fancy Facebook ads, or like it has to be like a really customized graphic, or I have to like put on a face and some hair and stuff like that and get on Instagram and stuff, like doing that, the lives. I was not fancy at all. Like my website was basic and I was telling people I'm building your website. That was the funniest part. Like my website was so basic. I wish I had a picture of it, but like I would just promote myself and just be like, here's what I'm doing. And then every time I would create like just a little project, I would just be like, here's what I recently did for somebody. And the second thing I started to do was like, investing in courses and coaching programs, because there was stuff that I didn't know that I needed to know. I wouldn't say that it was 100% helpful in the beginning though.
Why was that? Is it because you weren't actually doing the work that the coaches said?
Correct.
Okay. I always hear that.
Correct. Because I would purchase, like, these programs were expensive too. Like they weren't cheap. Like I would be like, okay, let me just invest, because I was just using my job money in order to invest. So I would invest and then I wouldn't do the work. And then I'm like, okay, so it didn't give me the result that I thought I would get. So I think, so yes, like what I'm saying is invest in the program, because the program has some good material in it. But if you don't do the work, then you're not going to get the result that you want. So invest in the program, because I use the content from that program in order to kind of figure out and build a system that would help me to eventually be able to, like, you know, turn my business into a really good machine. So the next thing I did was also, hold on. I have to think. I invested in a program. I started promoting myself, but then I started raising my prices. That was the third thing. So raising my prices was important, because I was doing a lot of work for cheap, because I was just trying to get myself out there and just trying to get clients so I can show proof that, you know, I'm legitimate and that I could do what I do. But that was not helping me at the end of the day, because I wasn't making any profit. I was probably just like putting as much money in as I was getting out, if that makes any sense, and not netting anything. And so when I started increasing my prices, then I started to see, okay, I have a little bit money left over so that I can actually pay myself. So you're probably thinking to yourself, like, okay, so then when did you actually quit your job? So I kind of did it strategically. And I learned this from somebody else who I was following, another website designer. Her name is Crystal Rory. I think that's how you say it.
As you guys know, this episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. And for me, McDonald's is more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It really is like an unofficial community center. One of the memories I have as a kid is having gone to McDonald's birthday party at some point in my life, right? I remember being like 6, 7, and the biggest thing was if your friend was having a McDonald's birthday party, there were 2 things that were guaranteed. You were going to have a Happy Meal and you were going to get to play in that big play pit. I love being able to think back on those memories and just see how much McDonald's really has served as a community pillar for so many of us dream drivers. Beyond that, McDonald's has probably been the first job of someone that you know. It's been a pit stop destination on a family road trip that you can rely on. And this may be a little bit more new, but their Wi-Fi is always dependable. And as a dream driver, you know how important it is to have that dependable Wi-Fi, especially when you're eating in person and you want to get some work done. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Aha moment along your dream driving journey. This AHA episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by AHA. Before you ask, what are you talking about? Please allow me to explain. Our partner for today is AHA Sparkling Water, and I want to tell you a little bit more about the brand, but we're going to be using some of these AHA moments along the way to help you understand. AHA is a bold, sparkling water with a 2-in-1 flavor combination in every kahan. So some of your flavor combinations can include blueberry and pomegranate, lime and watermelon, or peach and honey. That peach and honey does sound good because I definitely love those 2 flavors. And some flavors like mahango and black tea are even caffeinated with caffeine. Look for AHA anywhere you buy sparkling water and get your hands on some today. You'll probably wonder how you ever lived without it, and I know it sounds too good to be true, but it's not. There's a good chance that you'll never want to drink any other sparkling water ever again. AHA sparkling water. Can I get a AHA? Oh, I feel like I used to follow her. Did she do, is that Chris did it?
Chris did it, yes.
Okay, yes,
I followed her. I was such a big fan of her work, and I listened to one of her interviews, and she talked about how she transitioned from full-time work into her business. And she said that she had asked her job to work part-time, and then instead of like just completely leaving the company, she asked her job to work part-time. And then from there, like once she felt comfortable, like with the business and the work that she was doing, then she felt comfortable enough to like just completely like stop working for her full-time job. And that's basically what I did. So I asked my job, I was like, hey, I'm at a point where I'm not really, like growing, like from a personal and professional standpoint. And instead of like just leaving altogether, I would like to see if there's like an opportunity for me to just work part-time. And then in doing so that I would be able to like kind of be more of like a contractor versus like a full-time person. And they were okay with that. And so that's what I started to do. I worked part-time with them, and then I worked part-time on my business. But then I started getting so many clients that I was like able to say, hey, I'm good. I'm good right now.
Kudos.
Yes. And another thing that also really helped with the transition is that like, while I was still at work and making all these investments in courses and stuff like that, like I still was saving. Like I had I'm leaving. I had an I'm leaving fund, like literally I'm quitting. So I put all that money into that account so that I could have like a little bit of a cash cushion, just like when I leave, just in case like things didn't work out, so I could pay my bills. And I tell you that helped so much because when I did make the transition to actually working full time, I needed that money. I needed that money so bad.
The projection, it's like what you projected, what really happened. They weren't aligned, right?
Yeah, they weren't aligned because when I finally, so again, like I did all of this while I was pregnant with my second kid. So,
girl, kudos to you. Pregnancy is rough, right? So
it was a rough pregnancy for me. On top of that, like my son, for some reason, like he was giving me like terrible sciatica. And if you're not familiar with that, it's basically where like you have back pain so bad, so traumatic that like you literally cannot walk. Like there were several days that I could not walk at all. Like it felt like somebody was pinching my spine and I had lost all sensation down my leg. So I would be in my bed with my laptop, just, just working, powering through it because I'm like, I refuse to fail. So, so yeah, it was like a rough pregnancy. And so, like I said, when I made that transition, like I had literally had my child, did not take a break, kept going, was nursing the baby, still taking calls on the side. Like literally I would be on sales calls, nursing my child, and people would be like, you know what, it is what it is. And then the pandemic happened and I was like, oh no, like, did I leave my job at the wrong time?
Ooh, that's interesting, right? Because you were basically helping at this point. Did you, because right now, like if people go to your website, you have a very clear target audience, right? You help women-led businesses specifically. Is it specifically women of color or is it more women-led?
It's so funny. Like people ask me that all the time. Like I don't explicitly say it, but I do specifically want to help women of color as my mission. So it's women-led businesses in general, but I do specifically target women of color mostly because, again, like I said, we're already at a disadvantage, like economic wise, right? So like the resources that are available to the most of the world, like Black women or women of color just do not leverage these resources. Like they don't leverage website designers or graphic designers and stuff like that. And they often have to resort to finding like templates or doing it themselves and stuff like that. And I kind of want to be that resource where I can help them to actually have that polished look and professional look and compete with the big boys because, 9 times out of 10, all of these women that I meet, they are so accomplished and they do amazing things. And they're just killing the game. And I'm like, oh, but it looks like you just started yesterday. So I don't understand that. So like, yes, my target audience just happens to be women of color, mostly because I want to help them, look as professional as they are, So yeah, I do target women of color, if that makes any sense.
I know, I forgot where I was going with this, but like you had figured out your niche audience. You said the pandemic hit. Like what was going through your mind and what was that shift for you? How were you still able to get clients and make sure that, business still ran?
Yeah. So I think the hardest thing for me when the pandemic hit was, number one, I felt as though things were just going to stop and it was going to halt and no business was going to come through. I had the opposite problem. Okay.
People are like, I'm at home. Yes. I got time.
Yes. Everybody was like, I'm about to start a business and like, I need you to help me build a website in order to start the business. And my biggest mistake was I said yes to everything. Okay. I said yes to everything coming in. And again, my prices were not fixed for that. Like my prices were too low to take on that many clients. Another thing is like, I didn't have the time. Like I had a newborn baby, like literally a small little newborn baby that I had to take care of. Plus my son was home all the time. Plus my husband was home too. He didn't have the time to work with the kids. So another thing that I had an issue with was time. Like I don't have time. I have all of these clients and the money that's coming in is just not enough for me to be able to even hire extra support and stuff like that. So I think the biggest lesson here for people is like, sometimes, you get hit with like something and you think that it's going to tank you, but like, the reverse can really happen. Like maybe you're not able to handle all of the influx of success that's coming your way. So it's definitely like a learning point for me where I was like, okay, if you do not have the infrastructure, if you do not have the systems, and if you do not price yourself correctly, you are not going to be able to handle the work that is going to come your way. So the pandemic hit and I had no time, but a lot of work to do. So
what did you do? Like, I'm over here thinking like, we got that shirt, Shirley plans and then life happens.
And then life happens. That's right. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that like me and my husband survived that.
Y'all probably get on each other's nerves, like, because when you have tension with your own business, sometimes it can spill out into other areas of your life too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like the biggest thing was like, I just kept working. So like I was very, very sleep deprived, not only because of the having a newborn, but because I just kept trying to fit in work whenever I could fit in work because I had to try to get things done. So my husband and I, we tried a system where like he would take care of the kids half the day and then I would take care of the kids half the day. And then that wasn't working. So then we tried to do like the tag team where he's like, I'll take one kid, you take one kid. That didn't work either. So then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'll take the kids and then I'll work all night. And then you take the kids, and he would just like work all day and stuff like that. And that kind of worked. But honestly, the only thing that ended up working was like we needed extra support. So we were able to get my sister kind of like to help us with the kids. And that gave us a little bit of flexibility for each of us to work. And it gives me as an individual flexibility to work as well. So that helps. So obviously you need to get help with the kids, because if you're a mom, like you're just not going to be able to do it.
And you're just going to be operating or eating. You're not at your best potential, right? Like you're not at your optimal. You don't have the optimal energy to just be efficient sometimes when you're so overworked and underslept. Is that the word? You know what I'm trying to say? Like sleep deprived.
Yeah. So and you know what's so funny about that whole situation is that like I had that influx of work and all of this business coming through, and you would think that I still have time to take care of myself, like take a shower and eat some food and stuff like that. I didn't do none of that. Like that sounds gross, but honestly, I probably like by the end of the week, I would finally be able to take a shower. And like that, I was like, something's got to change. And
like,
also,
is this the life that Shirley wanted for herself? Right?
Yeah, I had to like wake up and figure out like, this is not me. Like, I don't like this. And plus I was like neglecting my eating because like, I would just focus on the kids. I was just like, okay, are the kids fed? Are the diapers changed? Like, did you take a shower and stuff like that? Like I would focus on their needs. And then like, before I even get the chance to breathe, then I have to go back to my clients because like their needs need to be met too. They need to know that, they paid all this money. They can trust, that I will get the job done. And I was just trying my hardest, but I have to, like that was a tough time for me because it took a lot of energy out of me. So for most people, like the pandemic, like kind of hit them hard and they're like, oh, I lost a lot of money, but like, I had all of this business and I didn't know how to handle it. So I didn't make enough money, which is why I needed that savings that I had from the job that I just left. And there was like a point in time where, again, like, because I didn't know how to manage those projects correctly, like there was just a point in time, like there was like $0 in the savings bank. And like, I was just like, oh, I have all these projects, like I can't hire help. And there's no more money in the savings, like literally no more money in the savings, not just my savings, but also my husband's. Like we were at $0 and I broke down crying. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
You had two kids. It's not just you. Like, that's the thing now I realize as a mother, it's like, it's not just you anymore. It's not just you.
And I think that's probably what was going through my head is like, oh my gosh, like we could possibly lose a house and my kids won't have a place to sleep, or like, I don't have clothes to put on their back. I remember there was like, I looked at my son one day and there was like a hole in his shirt. I was like, I don't even have money to buy clothes. Like I was like, I was really like at a mental breakdown. And it's so funny because like on paper, like I literally had all of these clients and you would think that I was successful, but because again, I wasn't priced correctly for all of that influx of work.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out as profitable as I thought it would be, but I learned my lesson.
I'm going to say, so come on, Shirley, because Shirley plans, life happens, but you come back.
I learned my lesson.
So what was the comeback here?
So I took a break after finishing all of those projects. I took a break and I was like, we're not going to start 2021 doing all of that. We're not going to do that anymore. And so when I started this year, it was so intentional. Again, I was like, I'm going to plan, but I'm not going to plan too far ahead because when I do that, it doesn't work out according to plan. So I'm going to create a shorter plan I'm going to create a short-term plan. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and just plan each quarter and figure out where to go from there. So I created this short-term plan, which was like, I need a system that is going to automatically work every single time or consistently work every single time I get a client. So I had to repackage all of my stuff. Repackage it to make sense for the amount of work that I could do. Okay.
Because at this point, are you operating alone? Are you a solo house, meaning you're doing all the work?
Okay. Yeah, I was like completely like 2019, 2020. I was just on my own doing it by myself. I never hired a contractor. I never hired a designer. I would just do all the work myself. And that's one of the things that clients liked when they were working with me is the fact that they were working solely with me and not with like a whole bunch of randos. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they were like, oh yes, I know my work is personally coming from Shirley. She will oversee it. And then I can personally ask her questions and stuff like that. And so I was like very intentional about, I need help. Like I can't do it all myself. Yeah. So I had built that into my packages and like, just understand that like, okay, I need to have extra money so that like somebody can come in and help me with the workload. Also, again, like I said, having a system that would just be like predictable. So I know like at each stage, like exactly what to do and also how long this is going to take. Cause that was another problem I was having, like the time management portion of it was getting out of hand because I didn't know how to, again, control all of the influx of inquiries that were coming in, all of the questions and stuff like that. So I thoroughly thought about like, what are the questions that people are going to ask me? And I put it all into basically a system. I use stuff like Bonsai for all of the contracts and proposals and invoicing and stuff like that. And the beauty of setting all of this up, I know some people like to use like Dubsado or Honeybucks or something like that. So if they're familiar with those systems, this was the exact same thing. And in setting up those systems, I was able to literally take hours off of my work schedule. So like when I did sales call, it was so simple to just press a button and then like things would automatically send. Like, so my clients would get email reminders. So it felt like I was still giving that personal touch without necessarily giving the personal touch. So that helped with the automation. I also increased my prices. Now, it wasn't like a significant increase, but it was enough for me to understand that like, okay, I'm still netting this type of profit whenever I do a project. So I know specifically per project exactly what type of profit I'm generating. And I'm talking about profit, not like just like owner's pay and stuff like that, like not the money that I'm just taking out. I'm talking about the money that is left over after all of the expenses, after I paid myself and all of that stuff, and there's still money left over. So I know there's a profit per project. Okay. So as long as I followed that system, everything was good. And honestly, when I put this into implementation, it worked out so well. It worked out so well. And I was like, my mind was blown because I went from being somebody who was earning like literally like $40,000 after taxes to somebody who's making six figures. Like it's freaking crazy.
What was that? It's funny because I know I can ask you, how did you feel? But like, what do you think that did for you? Like, how do you think that impacted your personal journey, the personal, I guess the inner development or whatever that word is, right? Like, what did that do for you?
I literally look into my money sometimes and I'm just like, I can't believe I did that. I feel so good about myself, especially like looking back, like all the way to my childhood and my mother saying, I want you to be a doctor because, it's going to earn a lot of money. And I'm like,
and they're stressed out. They're probably more stressed out than you. I know I have a friend who's a doctor and she hates it. Anyway, sorry, but it's like,
right? Like, I just look at it and like, I'm not a doctor and I'm still earning that money and I still feel good about myself. And like, eventually I'm going to get to a point where like, I'm going to be like, my net worth is going to be in the millions, hopefully, because that's the aspiration. And I just feel like if you stick to it, if you're determined, come up with short-term plans and then like go with the flow as things kind of change, then you can make the goal and you'll be surprised about like all the things you could do. So I hope like anybody listening to this is hopefully getting inspired, because my story is not the, oh, I started a business and 3 months later I made $1 million like story. It was a journey. It was such a journey to get from like being in my 20s and earning chump change to like right now I can like look at any month and I'm making 5 figures a month, like that's it feels so good to say that.
And the thing too about your journey is like you had these aspirations from when you were like in your 20s and you wanted to be an entrepreneur. But as you said, like sometimes the plan doesn't come into fruition until later. But that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of having it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't dream. And right now you might have dreams for your business that may not happen like in the next year or 2 years, but it'll happen in 5 years. But you gotta stick to being on the journey. If you had said, all right, I'm done with this, I'm about to go become an Eskimo, right? Like, then none of this would have panned out. Like,
don't get it twisted. There were days where I'm just like, I need to quit. Like, I'll be on Indeed. Like, let me see what these people are paying. And like, I have designer friends or like people who are going through the same situation with me. And I'll just call them and be like, look, I could just take a job tomorrow, and just call it quits. And then they encourage me to just keep going. They're like, no, you're really gifted. You're really talented. And these people they earn way more than I do. And so like, I'm just like, okay, I'll stick to it. So that also helps. It's another piece that helps is also having somebody with you along this.
I was going to say that support
adventure.
System.
Yeah,
like you need somebody. It's funny because on one of the interviews I did yesterday, the guest was talking about how sometimes you just need that one person. Like she had this one friend that inspired her, told her like, I believe in you. Sometimes you just need like your mother, right? Like every time your plan didn't work out, it seems like she was very supportive and she said, hey, we got this. Sometimes you just need that one person in your passenger seat to be like, girl, here, you drive, I got the gear shift, all right? Like, I'll move the gear shift for you, but you just keep driving, right?
Yeah, I agree. Another thing that inspired me, and you probably don't even notice, but like, I remember it was, I think it was like one of your episodes, or it was Journey to Launches episode, but like that episode where you all got together and y'all were talking about your mastermind group. I was like so
First of all, hold on, let me do a side note. So if you guys want to know about Shirley's work, so you did Nikayla of Side Hustle Pro's website, and you did Jamila Souffrance of Journey to Launch, her new website. So yes, she is the mastermind behind those beautiful sites. Anyway, sorry for hijacking that.
Yeah, there's a lot of other ones that are coming out. I can't talk about them right now because the client doesn't want to, but like you'll see it soon. Like they're also like heavy hitters in this space as well. So, but yeah, like when I listened to that episode and I saw how you guys were like, because you had that group together, like you were able to like kind of push each other and stuff like that. I was like, I knew from that moment that I needed kind of like a collaborative, like mind group as well, in order to kind of encourage me and keep me going. And I'm still kind of like on that journey, but I have found a few people who I can like tap their shoulder and like discuss, money talk, business talk, and stuff like that with them. And that is really, really encouraging, especially like when you have days where like clients are emailing you at midnight and like you don't have an answer, or like you look at your you got like project scope, or like you underprice something and you just feel like an imposter or something in the space. Having that conversation with those people, it really encourages you and helps you and motivates you to just keep going. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it really, really does help. You're not always going to be able to talk to, like your husband or your sister or something like that. Because like I try to talk to my husband and I love him, bless his heart. He tries to listen to me, but he's a corporate man. He loves the corporate environment. He loves corporate jobs and like having that system. And he's just like, he just can't relate,
Yeah.
But he does listen to me, but I would like prefer not to like,
you gotta find your tribe.
I would prefer not to like bother him with all of this stuff. I would just prefer to have conversations about other things with him, and then have these heavy conversations with those people and just have a space where like I feel comfortable doing that. So let me thank you for inspiring me to
Thank
do
you,
that.
Shirley. No, this, it's funny because I went into this saying, hey, I want this to be about digital branding and all this other stuff. And then I realized like, I didn't even know all this backstory to your story. Right. So I just really just thank you for sharing it, because I know there's somebody's listening who right now may be planning, right? And they're like, oh wait, my plans are not going through, or who may be thinking like, I'm 10 years in and things aren't still working out. Should I give up? And just hearing your story about how like, all right, like things, you have all the intention sometimes, but sometimes life just happens and you have to respond to it, but you can't come back from it. Like this is a comeback story, right? This is Shirley's comeback story. And come back and I ain't going back story, right?
I ain't going back. Like you got that correct, girl. I'm not going back. Like now that I'm at this point, I'm like, okay, I could see the growth being exponential. So like if you ever seen some of those math equations or those graphs where it's like the growth is so slow at the bottom, and then all of a sudden it just whoop, it goes all the way up, like that's definitely going to be me. And I can confidently say that just because like I've been through all the mess. Like I failed 1,000 times over. Okay. So I know all the mistakes not to make anymore. And from here on, I just basically just seeing going up. So yeah, I definitely encourage people, do not give up. I know it sounds like a cliche. You're going to cry. You're going to cry. You're going to have tears. Things are going to fail over and over and over again. And you're going to feel like, why am I doing this? If it's like, am I going insane? I just keep doing this and it keeps failing. So no, you're not going insane. Just keep at it. And then you'll be able to see that progress as long as you keep at it. And you'll become the expert that people can come to for advice because of the fact that you didn't give up.
You know, I love that you share that, because I think that's something that I'm personally going through right now. Like I look at like my episodes, like this will probably be like 284, 85, right? And I'm like, yo, I've been doing this for a long time. Or even like the other day, my mom had some jam in her kitchen and I looked at it. I'm like, Trade Street Jam Company. Like I had her on my show. Like, like I got stained, right? But I think sometimes even me, it's like, why are you still doing this, girl? Like you haven't got picked up. Like you haven't done, but like even hearing you say just that, podcast interview inspired you, or, I think it really is a testament. It's like we are on our own timelines. And so you cannot rush the journey sometimes. Like sometimes you really do have to go through the good, the bad, the times of just like, what is it when you're at the same level?
In the murky middle, I don't know.
Yeah, like it's kind of just like consistency. I feel like I'm putting out episodes and I haven't had like the big break. But then again, it's like, what is the big break? What is like? I have to maybe think through that a little bit more. But it also goes to show like you have something that you've made and you've grown it, and you're inspiring people. So this has really inspired me too. Like you don't know what's around the corner.
And another thing for people to really understand is that I don't have a big following on Instagram. I'm not like, on there like that. I don't have millions and thousands of followers. I don't have a huge podcast or anything like that, but I'm able to still run a profitable business. So let that be encouragement to you as well. And I still have been able to book brand deals as well. And I don't who am I?
You Shirley. Who am I? Mother Shirley, okay?
Yes, I've been able to get my name out there without having a huge following. So if you're letting that impede you from your success, please don't, because it's really not that, it's not that serious. It's not that complicated. You can still reach high levels and levels of success without necessarily having to have a high following and things of that nature.
Yep. And don't be fooled. A lot of those big people, they are crying and they sleep at night too, right? Like just because you have followings doesn't always equate with success. A lot of these influencers are broke, right? And here you are, a smaller business, and you're profitable. So I can definitely agree with what Shirley said. As we wind down, first of all, I know we didn't get to talk about digital branding and just why we need to invest in our online presence. And maybe you can tell our listeners where they can find more about you and what you do. I know you probably have resources, or, people can check out your website. So let us know all that info there. I mean, right now.
So if you want to find out all that information, I will be working on it on shirleyt.co. So towards the end of the year, I literally have taken off the time just so I can create content because people ask me a lot of questions and I want to be able to put it in a place where you can find it. So again, go to shirleyt.co and you can find all of that information. That's shirleyt.co because sometimes people will put the .com. I would have done that too. So yes, you can find it there.
And then on Instagram, where are you on Instagram?
Oh, yes. So on Instagram, you can find me on Shirley T Design. I keep forgetting. It's Shirley T Design. So if y'all are wondering, like, who is this Shirley T? If you said your name is Shirley Ansley, Shirley T is a nickname that people have given me because before I was Shirley Ansley, I was Shirley Theodore, and people would just be like, Shirley T. And it just stuck. And so that's why I go by Shirley T if you're wondering that.
Okay. And last but not least, Shirley, to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right? So what do you think are 3 things that every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Okay. Number 1 is a system. That's hands down, you need a system. When I say system, not like a personal support system, but like a system that is going to run on automation. So have your emails already scheduled, know exactly what your processes look like and things of that nature. You need to have that system in place because if you don't have it in place, you're going to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Like if you don't have it, then you're not going to be successful. Number 2, you have to have, I know this is cliche, but you need to have faith. I cannot begin to tell you, I never thought going on your entrepreneur journey would have anything to do with faith and having have to really dig deep and figure out exactly who you are as an individual. So I don't mean it necessarily from a religious perspective, but if you don't believe that it's possible for you at some point in time, you're definitely going to fail. So you need to have faith. That is a key thing in running your own business. And then finally, I would say the final key is to, I guess, have that support system.
Right.
Support, you need somebody that you can talk to and be able to walk you through your adventure. And having those people behind you and supporting you all the time and cheering you on, they mean the world to you and they will help you no matter what stage you are in your business. So yay.
Thank you so much. I'm about to text the group chat later yo, Shirley loves you guys. I know Jamila and Nikila will definitely be happy to hear from you. Well, thank you so much, Shirley. This has been such a pleasure. And I'm happy we were able to catch up and just talk what's going on and just inspire each other to keep going. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 284 with Shirley Ansley. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you love this episode, guys, stop what you're doing right now and please share it, post it to Instagram stories, let people know that you're listening, send a link to your friend, your best friend, your mom, your dad, whoever, post it to Facebook, LinkedIn. I really enjoy when you guys are sharing, and that's the way that we can get our Dreams and Drive community to grow, because I know that you know somebody who needs to hear this episode as well. So if you share, I'll be greatly appreciative of that. Remember, you can find us across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are Dreams and Drive across the board, and use that hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well so that I can find you and go in and engage. Guys, if you're enjoying this content, make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're listening. Hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And remember, if you want to join our email community, The Keys, and get weekly emails to your inbox from me personally, just sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. If you like this episode and if you're somebody who has a great story and you want to be on the next, so if you enjoyed this episode and you have a great story and think you have what it takes to be on the next episode of Dreams and Drive, please sign up, or please pitch me, dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. That's dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I'm always welcoming new Dreams and Drive stories on the show, and I would love to hear from you. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 285. Bye, guys.